By the way, I consider Pharaoh my father. I consider the Egyptians my ancestry. I consider those who built the pyramids, the Sphinx, modernized medicine beyond anybody's belief at the particular time, more so than Rome, more so than any other nation. I consider Pharaoh my father. I can call myself a son of Pharaoh. And if you're using Pharaoh as an example, and I don't think that's what you mean, my going to Pharaoh would be simply going back to my father. I do believe this. I do believe that at one time we were probably some of the greatest scientists, doctors, politicians, even uh, physicists that the world had ever seen. Pharaoh, Egypt at one time was one of the greatest. Egypt had the Jews enslaved for 400 years.
Yeah, God's people, yeah.
For 400 years. Till Moses came down there and wreaked havoc upon Pharaoh. But I know that's not the question that you're asking. I'm not going begging anybody for anything. Anybody who knows anything about me know I don't beg. I take what I want if someone tries to take it from me or withhold what's rightfully mine. Let me put it that way.
I believe Jesus says something along the lines of, my kingdom is not of this world, right?
That is true.
How do you balance your spiritual calling with seeking political power in the world's biggest city?
Jesus also said, I'm going to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself. And he says, I will come again, meaning he's coming back to earth again. When he comes back to earth again, he's coming back to a kingdom. The Bible also says that heaven, as we understand it, will be vacated. It'll pass away. It will no longer exist. Jesus will not abandon heaven, but he will leave it and come and establish his kingdom here on earth. Revelation chapter 20, that he will live on earth for 1,000 years. Be a period called the reign of peace, where the dead in Christ shall be risen. People like John the Baptizer, David the king, Samuel the prophet, and he will live. And that's what Allah is all about. And at some point, even that kingdom will pass away and there'll be a new heaven and a new earth.
Some pastors say that trying to, get into politics can kind of steer you away from your faith. How do you see yourself balancing both, or do you see yourself combining your faith and being a mayor?
I respect the pastor's ideals. I think it's misinterpreted about the separation of church and state. I think that there is a misunderstanding of what the fathers or founding fathers or constitutionalists meant when they said that the state shall make no religion, that the people shall adhere to, and that there shall be a separation of the two. I think most people have misinterpreted that to say that the church or the pastor should not enter into politics because of the separation of church and state. The pastor, whether he knows it or not, is probably the biggest politician in town because of his endeavors. He deals with the issues of the people. He deals with their homelessness. He deals with their future. He deals with their education. He deals with their well-being, their morals, their structure. The pastor is the biggest politician going, if he understands what his job is. Okay. And how uniquely he's been empowered.
When you look at Mayor Adams, what has he gotten wrong, and what is it that you will do better?
Mayor Eric Adams has always been a fraud. Garbage in, garbage out.
Why you say that?
A number of people that I've talked with about him told me when he was a police officer that he really wasn't a good one. Several women brought charges against him that he, as a lieutenant or as a sergeant, asked them for sexual favors and he would move them up the ladder. One woman actually filed charges. I'm not sure where that case is at present. He made it to the rank of lieutenant, but he really wasn't a good police officer. A number of people have said that. And what I mean by the fact he's always been a fraud, he's always been a deceitful person who doesn't have strong mores. He doesn't have a strong commitment to anything except he wanted power. So he was the Brooklyn borough president for a while. He became the mayor through a lot of illegitimate means. But you are who you are. And trying to raise money to be or to gain office, you can be tempted to do some fraudulent things. There's no doubt about it. And he gave into those fraudulent things, but that's not the worst of it. I can forgive him for that. Going back an hour ago, I told you when I was convicted down there in Miami. Listen, in Miami, courts were handing out 100 years to black men like serving pancakes at IHOP. You just got 100 years. Okay, what you did? 100 years. Just get 100 years in prison. You ain't gonna never see the light of day no more. They offered me a plea deal. I said, I'm taking this to trial. I did the same thing here in the state of New York. Eric Adams, the charges that were brought against him, he should have gone to trial, got himself a fancy lawyer. Hell, hire me. Got himself a lawyer, put that case before the jury, and let the jury decide whether he's guilty or not. He chopped up, went down to Donald Trump and asked Trump to get him back. I mean, come on, man. You know, act like a man, stand up.
I think the attorney general ended up dropping the charges against him, right?
Because Trump told him to do it. He didn't do it on his own, and it wasn't done willing. A number of attorney generals left the Southern District and left the Department of Justice because they were not going to do it. They knew he was guilty. They weren't going to do it. But this other creep did it. But he should have gone to trial, stand up, and take it like a man. But so he's a fraud.
Okay.
Internally, he didn't have the Constitution to say, I'm going to win this. I'm going to trial. He didn't have the Constitution to do that internally.
Now, Eric Adams calls himself a blue-collar mayor, and that he focuses a lot on public safety and affordability. What will make your plans for safety different and better than his?
First of all, it's a lie. Whatever he's saying, it's a lie. But on a broader scale, because you're going to ask me about these politicians, if you look carefully what all of them are saying, whether they white, black, chartreuse, or whoever, if you listen to them, all of them are saying, we're going to fix black people. Crime, homelessness, affordability, all those are black people's problems. Everything that they say is about black people. They're not talking about white people. Crime is not an issue with white folk. Affordability of housing is not an issue with white folk. Now, there's some people that have some issues. Homelessness is not an issue with white folk. This is all about black people and their problems. They're not talking about corporate. They're not talking about Wall Street. They're not talking about the Upper East Side or the Upper West Side. All of them, I don't care who they are, Black, Andrew Cuomo, Eric Adams, Mondani. It's about black people. The smaller minority of black people got problems, and everybody's running on the backs of what black people need. Now, it's true, they do need it. But I think what the whole world fails to realize is they're not running to be white people. Well, they're not talking about white people's problems. They're not doing that. They're not talking about Wall Street. They're not talking about, there's no homelessness on Wall Street. There's no affordability problem with Wall Street. They're talking about, so they need to come out and say that and realize it's because of them that black people have these problems. One of the reasons why crime is a problem in New York is because black families don't have black fathers.
I've heard that before.
If that black man was in that house, knocking that boy's head every time he act like he thought about it, he won't go to school. Well, you're getting your ass up out of here. You're going to school today. You know, we won't need the police to knock him in the head. We won't need if the father trains him, teaches him, makes him be respectful. If the father does that, we can shut down the police, the precincts, We can shut them down. Now, I said this, police people think I'm against them. I'm not. But I become the mayor. A lot of the precincts are going to have to shut down because I'm going to put that father back in that house.
I've heard that statement about putting black fathers back in the homes. I've heard a lot of
That's what's needed.
black men saying that on the corners here in Harlem. I've heard that exact same statement.
That's what's needed. Then the crime goes down. I mean, it goes way down because that's where the crime is coming from. Young black boys. The other thing is, and so I spent some time in prison. I called on Governor Hochul and Eric Adams that if a man's been in prison, no matter what his sentence is, he's been there for 7 years, and he's demonstrated while in prison that he's really got his life together. Let him come out on the street, stand on 125th Street and Lennox Avenue, and talk to the young black girls. Let him go to the schools and talk to the young men. Don't do what I did. Don't prison. It ain't worth it. You're young. You don't know what the hell you're doing. You don't have any idea. You probably not, young boys are not scared to go to prison. They don't even think about it. When you're 18, 19, 20, 25, you don't think about prison. You know you're doing a crime, but you don't realize it's going to go, you're going to end up in prison. They don't realize that. Somebody got to tell them. And somebody who understands that process. I told Governor Hochul, there probably, 25, 30 men that you can bring out of prison and give them a salary. Let them go to these schools and let them go talk to these people. And I'm not talking about scared straight either. I'm just talking about the fact that you don't know what you're doing right now. You have no idea what this is going to end up, how this is going to mess up your life. When you could have a great life, but if you go to prison, all bets are off.
I know that Mayor Adams has a gun violence initiative where he's trying to decrease gun violence, and he's had in all the boroughs different clergy members or faith leaders or organizations join. I know one being the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, where they help the community with gun violence, doing public safety walks, food drives. If elected mayor, would you use the assistance of other faith leaders and clergy members and organizations to accomplish that goal of public safety?
I don't know if that would be one of the issues I would use it for, but yes, I would work cooperatively with other, if they're willing to work with me. Of course I would, yes.
Andrew Cuomo, he had to step down as governor due to, pretty serious sex allegations. What's your thoughts about him trying to run for mayor with this baggage behind him?
Well, it's not so much what I think about him. It's what I think about any idiot who's willing to vote for him. Where did the sanctity go that, okay, so you say something to a woman, she's looking good, she ain't your wife, you're working with her, something.